freedom,
family,
world unity.
All these things and more will be discussed on this podcast.
Real stories, real people, real debates. On this podcast, we like to express our freedoms and talk about anything and everything goes.
Like freedom, family is important to us, and anybody that is listening, watching, or coming on the show as a guest star are all considered part of the greatest family to ever bless the solar system, the human race. No matter who you are, where you come from, you will always have a voice here on this podcast.
We like to flex our First Amendment, where all speeches and opinions are accepted for the right of freedom of speech. We have a saying we like to live by. Live life with eyes wide open. Being open-minded leads to true understanding of the world as it really is. Please, come, join us, and enjoy this experience as we embark on this journey of truth as we dismantle the subjective truth. I'm your host, Nick.
And I'm your co-host, Victoria.
And you're experiencing high consciousness.
Disclaimer. Any and all information on topics presented are to the best of all who is present in each episode's knowledge. The goal of this podcast is to bring people together and set the example we all wish to see in our everyday lives. Whether it's home life, education, politics, history, business, etc. Any and all subjects can and will be talked and peacefully debated about on this podcast. On debate episodes, there will be a set rules of debate that hosts and guests alike must follow. We ask that you, the audience, like we ask of our guests, in the comments to please try to keep the language as clean as possible. We are a podcast for entertainment as well as educational purposes. Here, we are all equal no matter what race, age, or gender. Thank you, and enjoy the show.
Hi
there, y'all! Welcome back!
Yeah, we're all talking at the same time now. I'm your host, Nick.
And I'm your host, Victoria, and we are
High Consciousness.
Welcome back, y'all, to another episode of High Consciousness. And today, our episode is on Chapter 5 of Secret Destiny America, the Ancient League of Nations. And just a little synopsis, it's a little peekaboo about the story of Atlantis. So we're going to get into the nitty-gritty of what actually, happened to the city of Atlantis. And apparently there's some words of Zeus involved. So there's that. That was really exciting.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it was. Yes, it is going to be exciting. But anyway, and also review from last chapter, Chapter 4, about Solon, and the very first person to introduce debt forgiveness. Just in case y'all didn't know.
And loans, and the tax brackets,
and the social class in general, too. I mean, because Chapter 4 broke down that he was the one that founded the 4 class parties, if you think about it.
The upper, middle, and, lower class.
And make sure everybody had equal say. Really a lot of interesting stuff. We're wrong with a lot more stuff, too.
Mm-hmm. Even stuff that, because of Solon, they're, the things that were implemented in his time, or the things that he tried to implement in his time, are some of the very things that our entire American democracy is built upon.
Mm-hmm. And that right there is something to really, really... what's the word I'm looking for?
Something to chew on, maybe?
Yes.
Yeah, something to chew on. So, anyway, let's get into it. Chapter 5. A description of the lost Atlantis was written by Plato. It introduces the league formed by 10 I cannot say that word sometimes.
We are totally off key today, folks.
10 benevolent kings who ruled over the lesser nations of the 3 great continents of Europe, Asia, and Africa, who bound themselves by oath to obey the divine laws of an enduring empire. This was the philosophic democracy, with all men having the right to become wise through self-discipline and self-improvement, thus achieving the only aristocracy recognized by natural law. See, not man's law, natural law. The Atlantis story continues to be the later decision... The Atlantis story continues to the later decision of the kings to use their united power to enslave all the peoples of the earth, and the consequent destruction of Atlantis by earthquake and fire. Interpreted politically, it is the story of the breaking up of an ideal pattern of government. So it seemed like right there that's like, okay, so we had 10 kings and they ruled over
three continents.
And
Europe, Asia, and the Americans.
No, that was...
What was the third one?
Europe, Asia, and Africa.
Oh, okay.
Europe, Asia, Africa. Yeah. And so with that, they ruled over these three big continents, and when we get further into it, not only those, and then some, and they ruled in such a way for like a really long time where they were in balance with the laws of nature or with natural law. And as soon as they fell out of that,
the natural balance, which that being the having everyone at like kind of that equal plane, like however they were ruling before, they made the decision like, oh, let's go and conquer everybody in the world and enslave all the races of the world. Like, however they ruled before was imbalance. And as soon as they decided to get greedy like that and start enslaving people, that's when they made the gods angry, as the story goes. And the gods said, look, you had your chance and you did great, but then you messed it all up. Because you want to be greedy.
Yeah, pretty much. So, continuing on. The destruction of Atlantis, as described by Plato in the Critias, can be interpreted as a political fable. The tradition of the lost empire, as descended from Solon, was enlarged and embellished according to the formulas of the Orphic theology, but it does not follow necessarily that Plato intended to disparage the idea that a lost continent that actually existed west of Europe. Plato was a philosopher. He saw in the account of the fall of Atlantis an admirable opportunity to summarize his convictions concerning government and politics. The Critias first describes the blessed state of the Atlantean people under the benevolent rulership. Hey, I got it that time. Benevolent rulership of 10 kings who were bound together in a league. These kings were monarchs over 7 islands and 3 great continents. So 7 islands and 3 great continents. And our great continents being Europe, Asia, and Africa. And then 7 other islands. From the fable, we can infer that the 10 rulers of the Atlantic League were the philosopher kings, endowed with all virtues and wise guardians of the public good. These kings obeyed the laws of the divine father of their house, Poseidon, god of the seas. Okay, so the god that I guess they made mad was Poseidon.
Mm-hmm.
That's my assumption. In the capital city of Atlantis stood the temple of Poseidon, and in it a golden figure of the god. In this shrine also stood a column of precious substance inscribed with the laws of enduring empire. The 10 kings took their oath together to obey these laws, and they chose one of their number, usually the family of Atlas. Ooh, Atlas. To be the chief of their league. It was written on the column of the law that the 10 kings of Atlantis should not take arms up against each other for any reason. If one of them should break this law, the other 9 were to unite against him to preserve the peace. So if even one had one toe out of line, the other 9 got on him. Like, it was that quick to keep the balance. In all matters concerning the public good of the 10 kings were to deliberate together, and each should be mindful of the just needs of the others, for they were the numbers of one body and regents over the lands of a blessed God. So these were 10 different kings over all these lands, but they all had to work together as like one mind, one body, a full unit.
Mm-hmm.
Which is pretty unique. And they had, the one God to focus on to bring them all together. or the one god to fear that, hey, this guy might come smite us, from the sea.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and act right.
So let's act right, seeing how we're in the middle of the sea. Because Atlantis, the Atlantic, and it sank. So, there's that.
Atlantic thing.
The capital city of Atlantis stood the Temple of Poseidon. Oh, wait. Okay, Chief of the League, preserve peace. Okay, blessed God. Okay, sorry. I was out of place.
You lost your path.
I lost my place.
Right, it's on this paragraph.
The kings had not the power of life or death over any of their subjects except with the consent of the majority of the 10, which was responsible to the whole league for his conduct in the administration of his own state. Wait. The kings had not the power of life or death over any of their subjects, except without the consent.
So they can't kill them.
So they can't kill anybody.
But they will have the people, or they'll have a majority vote, and by that majority vote, they can take away his right, his estate.
I guess so.
Is that what I'm understanding from that? Because they can't kill him. So next thing you can do to him is literally take everything away from him that made him super duper powerful. So I believe would be the case.
I mean, that's where it would be like a 9-to-1 vote kind of thing.
Yeah, and that's
a majority vote.
Majority vote, and that's the reason why I even say that's because it says something about his estate, taking away his estate.
The kings of power had not. Okay, so the kings had not the power of life or death over any of their subjects except with the consent of the majority of the 10, and each was responsible to the whole league for his conduct in the administration of his own state. So yeah, I guess that's exactly what that means. That it'd be a 9-to-1, and everybody would have to be in agreement that hey, buddy did wrong, and
we're just going to take away his kingdomship.
Yeah. Okay. In this way, Plato describes the government of the Golden Age, in which men live on earth according to the laws of heaven. By the 3 great continents of Atlantis are to be understood: Europe, Asia, and Africa. By the 7 islands, all the lesser peoples of the earth. The League of the 10 Kings is the cooperative commonwealth of mankind, the natural and proper form of human government. The Atlantis, therefore, is the archetype or the pattern of right government, which existed in ancient days but was destroyed by the selfishness and ignorance of men. So this is where empires fall, even Atlantis. So if we want to consider Atlantis being like the first empire, consider it the first empire that ever fell.
From within.
Because it fell out of balance with nature, and not only that, but because it fell to greed and selfishness and ignorance.
Ignorance, yep. Yeah. You're not wrong.
Plato, it must be remembered, was a monarchist by philosophic conviction, but his ideal king was the wise man perfect in the virtues and the natural ruler of less informed than himself. This king was the father of his people, impersonal and unselfish, dedicated to the public good, a servant of both the gods and his fellow men. This king was descended of a divine race. That is, he belonged to the order of the illumined. That sounds familiar. For those who come to a state of wisdom, then belong to the family of the heroes, perfected human beings. Plato's monarchy was therefore a philosophic democracy, for all men had the right to become wise through the self-discipline and self-improvement. No one who achieved this state was, by virtue of his own action, a superior man, and this superiority was the only aristocracy recognized by natural law. Okay. So, let's read that one more time. Plato's monarchy was therefore a philosophic democracy, for all men had the right to become wise through self-discipline and self-improvement. One who achieved this state was, by virtue of his own action, a superior man, and this superiority was the only aristocracy recognized by natural law.
So
then that means that every single person on this earth, every man, woman, child,
can be enlightened and can be wise and can be strong as long as they have the self-discipline and the... What was the other self one? There was like two of them. Self-discipline and...
Self-improvement.
Willing to self-improve on themselves and not say they're going to or put something on the back pedal, not on the back stove and let it sit or, procrastinating. You cannot be procrastinating on this kind of stuff. You gotta be...
on the ball.
Every day, all day. Almost to the point where you don't want to, but you got to. If you want to learn and be wise and be enlightened, you gotta have self-defense and self-improvement.
You have to be self-reliant.
Self-reliance.
Yeah. But also the big thing that I'm taking away from here is that word aristocracy. It's the only aristocracy that natural law recognizes. So that means that each one of us has the potential to, as long as we self-improve and we self-discipline, and we are always willing to learn and expand
our knowledge.
Expand our knowledge and our
horizons. Knowledge and our good and our morale.
We each in our own right are kings and queens.
To know what's right and wrong and have common sense. We must expand all that and make it, I guess in a sense, not simpler, but make it to where it's understandable. Oh no, that don't sound right.
Well, anyway, I'm just going to finish what I said.
Go ahead.
The important thing is that word, aristocracy, because that means so long as we do these things, we become enlightened, we take the time and the effort to truly educate ourselves, enlighten ourselves, connect ourselves in a spiritual and philosophical way. We each, in our own right, are kings and queens. Yep. Every man, woman, and child are kings and queens in their own right, so long as their mind, body, and soul are all one.
Mm-hmm. Basically what I was trying to get at right there.
yeah. I just kind of...
Make a long story short.
made a long story short, yeah. Anyway, so moving along. Competition is natural to the ignorant, and cooperation is natural to the wise. Obeying the pattern established by the gods, the divine kings bound themselves into the common league to obey its laws, preserve the peace, and punish any whose ambition might impel them to tyranny or conquest. Ooh. So, okay. Those that think that, life is a competition, a constant competition,
it's not.
They're ignorant, is what they're saying. I mean, when you say survival of the fittest, I mean, that's kind of like, turning life into a competition kind of mindset. And, back in the day when it was truly, survival of the fittest and survivor mode all the time.
Yeah, you were grateful that you had other people because you simply couldn't really store or handle all those resources. So you were willing to give it out.
I guess so. Yeah.
And also you got also perspective that a lot of people didn't have, internet, social media, so a lot of things were word to mouth, and trade was I give you this, you give me that.
Yeah, pretty much. So, that's not competition though.
No.
That's where the other half here, the cooperation is natural to the wise. So, people that naturally are very cooperative, they are the team player rather than they want to be the team leader player. Those are the ones that end up being, those are kind of those ones that are ideal type leaders, because these are people that don't necessarily focus in on themselves, but if anything, they see themselves in you, and so in their minds, by helping you, it is in a way helping themselves and is helping the entire community. Because as long as we all help each other and we cooperate with each other, we can we could do anything. There is nothing that
everything.
can stop a bunch of human beings with a mission, bro. Like,
they all have one collective goal.
I mean, look at, like, if we want to get biblical with it, let's look all the way to the Bible in Genesis. I forget what part, but, you know, the whole story of Babylon and where, you know, God came in to see what the people are doing as they're building the Tower of Babel. And I quote, "Look at what they have done. When they all work together, there is nothing that they cannot do." God himself said that about us at one point in time, back way in the day. So, you know, if God knows our potential, we should know our potential too. Anyway, here then is a pattern of world government to ensure the prosperity of all peoples and activate the preservation of peace. Plato describes at some length the prosperity of the Atlantic Isles under this benevolent rulership. The citizens were happy, and poverty was unknown. A world trade was established, and the ships of the Atlantean marine traveled the seven seas, bringing rich treasures to the motherland. There was little crime, the arts flourished, and the sciences were cultivated in great universities. Men had no enemies, and war was unknown. The god Poseidon guarded the destinies of his domains and favored the Atlantic Empire with good climate and fertile soil. Men followed the occupations which they preferred and lived a communal existence, together sharing the fruits of their labors. It was Plato's conviction that the human being was not created merely to engage in barter and exchange, but rather to perfect himself as the noblest of the animals, endowed with reason and the natural ruler of the material world. The Critias then describes the gradual change that came about in the course of the ages. In the beginning, the Atlanteans saw clearly that their wealth and prosperity increased as a result of friendship, but gradually the divine portion of their consciousness began to fade away in them. Their souls became diluted with a mortal admixture. Ooh, say that 5 times fast.
Admixture.
No, mortal admixture.
Mortal
admixture.
Mortal admixture.
You totally messed that one up.
I did it.
You did. You did do that.
I did. Thank you.
You did do that. Okay, so going back. Okay, but gradually the divine portion of their consciousness began to fade away in them. Their souls became diluted with a mortal admixture, and human nature gained ascendancy. They became unseemly and lost those spiritual values which were the fairest of their precious gifts.
So basically saying that they were spiritually at one and enlightened.
And I guess they got too wealthy and comfy?
Yeah, pretty much.
That's kind of what I'm gathering here. It's like they saw the fruits of their labor, they enjoyed the fruits of their labor, they continued to share, and it got very, very prosperous, and then it's like, oh, well, all of a sudden their consciousness started to
hit its peak and then went down.
So that's kind of, and it's like, because, well, according to this, it kind of seems like the Atlanteans got very wealthy and got a little too comfy, or they just got bored.
Sat on their hands a lot.
They probably got bored because there wasn't enough work to do because
there was
already an abundance of everything.
Yeah, I was about to say, they already did enough. They weren't thinking about, lights, TV, or anything of that number.
Instead of conquering the other people of the world, they should have thought about sharing their wealth with the rest of the world. But they chose conquering instead. Ooh.
Bum, bum, bum.
Well, bingo. There you go. I just had the thought process right then and there.
Yeah, you can see those hamsters working their brain right now.
Yeah. So not only did they get, too comfortable and there wasn't enough work to do anymore, they decided they were bored and go to war.
And go ahead and flex their muscles. Do a quick flex.
And the gods, like that annoying fly that's been roaming around your house. You just, that's what the gods did to the Atlanteans, pretty much. Wow. And they lost their spiritual gifts. So, not only did they become comfortable and they had too much abundance, but also they lost their spirituality too. They started to fall away from spirituality.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. In the it is the story of how man departed from the perfect pattern of his conduct and in the end denied the very truths which were the foundations of his strength. With the loss of his spiritual perception, material ambitions increased, and the desire for conquest was born. Men yearned after which they had not earned, and gazed with covetous eyes upon the goods of others. Well, there you go.
Well, there you go. Answer your own question.
I answer my own question, or just prove myself, right. Or one of, I don't know. It was kind of like both. The rulers of the Senate were corrupted by the common evil. The 10 kings were no longer friends. They no longer conferred with each other in the temple of Poseidon to decide all matters under the common oath. Oh, even the kings started not, conversing with each other. They all started being like...
Tribalism and doing your own thing. Isolism.
Yeah, the isolationism, which we talked about in the last chapter, how that was like... Or was it last chapter, or was it... Yeah, it was last chapter, wasn't it?
What?
Chapter 4, where it's a detriment to the intelligent man? Or was that chapter 2?
Might have been chapter 2 with the...
I think that was chapter 2.
About the Auton. Because remember, he left and started teaching his own practice in. Oh, it could have been chapter 3. I think we read the book in our head.
It was one of the ones you read. So it was either 2 or 4.
Well, let's go back.
Well, we'll review in a minute. Anyway. Unless the kings decided... Okay, I'm just going to start with the beginning there. I'm going to go back to the beginning again. The rulers of the Senate were corrupted by the common evil. The 10 kings were no longer friends. They no longer conferred with each other in the temple of Poseidon to decide all matters under the common oath. Thus was the great league dissolved by selfishness and ambition. It was then that war came into being, and with it tyranny and oppression and despotism, despotism and the exploitations of peoples. At last, the kings of Atlantis decided to use their common power to enslave all the peoples of the earth. They gathered a vast army and attacked Europe from the sea, even going as far as to besiege the Athenian states. And they broke the law of the gods, for the 12 deities had so divided the earth that to each race and nation given its proper part. Zeus, the father of the gods, who carries in his hand the thunderbolts of divine retribution, perceived the evil of the time and resolved to punish the arrogance of the Atlanteans. But even Olympus is a commonwealth, and the other 11 gods were summoned to the council hall of the immortals. When all the gods had assembled in conference, Zeus arose among them and addressed them thus. It is with this line that Plato's story of Atlantis ends, with the words of Zeus remain unknown. Wow. So we don't get to know what Zeusy said. That sucks.
We can only guess on how
that went.
Spike them!
Well, let's see. If we look at Zeus from, the lens of mythology, he seems to be that kind of guy where he's like, they did wrong. Zap!
Yeah.
Oh. Crispy. Little crispy cribbing now. But the results of the conference are not left in doubt. Zeus hurled his thunderbolts against the Empire of the Sea. See? I called it. It's like Zeus probably just did the thing that he normally does. Psh, zap! Psst. He hurled his thunderbolts revolts against the empire of the sea, shaking it with earthquakes and then destroying it by horrible combustion. The only records that remained were in vague traditions and 2 columns set up under the Temple of Sais. Ah, the ones where the same one with where Solomon went.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, those columns. I made a guess last episode that those were probably written in Atlantean, and they are. The destruction of Atlantis can be interpreted politically as the breaking up of the ideal pattern of government. So complete was this destruction that men forgot that there is a better way of life, and since have accepted the evils of war and crime and poverty as inevitable. The world lost too all sense of its own unity. Each man's hand was thereafter raised against his neighbor. The perfect state disappeared under a deluge of politics. The priests of Poseidon gave way to the priesthood of Mammon. Mammon? Who that? Plato's political vision was for the restoration of the empire of the Golden Age. The old ways of the gods must be restored, he was convinced, if human beings were to be preserved from the corruptions which they have brought upon themselves. Plato sought this end when he established his university at Athens, the first school of formal education in history. Here men were taught of the great truths of religion, philosophy, science, and politics, to restore them to the vision of the perfect state. The old Atlantis was gone, dissolved in a sea of human doubts, but the philosophic empire would come again as a democracy of wise men. 2,000 years later, Lord Bacon restated this vision in his New Atlantis.
Lord Bacon.
Lord Francis Bacon.
He got the bacon.
Bacon.
Oh, and that is chapter 5.
That's chapter 5. So I did pose a question. So let's look up and see, like who's this priesthood of Mammon? Who's Mammon? Desktop. Ooh!
Sorry, I ain't got my contacts in, so I have to do a little squinty.
I should not be saying that word!
Oh, yeah, damn it!
And a pretty bad one at that. Okay, so...
Damn it, man! You see what I did?
So, in the
man.
New Testament, he's used to describe material wealth or greed. Let's see. Let's see.
So you're the one that brought down Atlantis, eh?
Greek mythology, maybe?
Same guy?
Greek god Plutus and Roman Dispater. He appears in the Divine Comedy.
Squinty eyes.
Snap doodles. Of course, it had to give me something from You Cannot Serve Both God and Mammon. And that's Gospel of Luke. When they quote Jesus. Matthew and Luke. He's known as one of the 7 princes of hell in Christianity and Judaism. Okay, but where's
the good stuff at?
Gregory of Nyssa was asserted. Oh, another name for Beelzebub.
Beelzebub.
Yeah. If you butcher it, it doesn't have the chance of invocation. So that's why I butcher them every single time. Because I'm not trying to say it. Because, words have power. Or that word... Anybody remember that song, Seether? Words are weapons, I'll be terrified. Yeah. Yeah, for real. Okay. He appears in the Divine Comedy as a wolf-like demon of wealth. Wolves have been associated with greed in the Middle Ages. Thomas Aquinas metaphorically described the sin of avarice as Ammon being carried up from hell by a wolf, coming to inflame the human heart with greed. Okay, so this thing is just entirely associated with
greed,
war and greed and conquerorship, pretty much. Well, isn't that interesting?
Mm-hmm.
Alright, so what is our next chapter, love?
Our next chapter is a Roman project to give rulership to the wise.
Ooh, that sounds like a good one.
And so please, like, subscribe,
And
hit the notifications bell too, so you know when we drop a new video.
And also, we are on Twitter now. You just go and look us up, High Consciousness on Twitter. www.twitter.com/highconsciousness. And as everybody knows, we are on YouTube and on Rumble. We are about to expand onto Twitch once I can figure that out. Well, I already figured out how to set up the account, but truth be told, I can't figure out how to upload a video just yet on Twitch. It's a lot harder and a lot less forward than YouTube and Rumble and Twitter. So, yeah.
Well, I believe Twitch is all about the live streaming. You gotta do this live action.
Well, Twitter you could post videos or you could do live streams, and eventually, when we get comfortable enough and we have all the right equipment, we will start doing live streams.
Livecast, and that will be exciting.
Yeah, that'll be really exciting to start
doing. A lot of exciting things coming to look forward to, y'all. So please.
And also, one more thing. We also have a Facebook page. So go on Facebook and search us up, High Consciousness. And for some reason, I decided to spell it right on Facebook. So, but it's spelled wrong on everything else. Which was a total oopsie in the first place. So.
I hear you, Nazi, grammar Nazi.
Look, it was 3 o'clock in the morning when I was making all this stuff, okay?
No one told you to be up that late, baby.
Well, you fell asleep.
Yeah.
But somebody had to do it. But anyway, please give us a like. Give us a follow, subscribe on YouTube.
Hit that notification bell.
On both of them, so that way you are always posted whenever we post a new video. And please go and follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. We love you guys. Thank you all so much for the support. We'll see you on the next one. Bye.
Have a beautiful time.